Most people think swimming pools are harmless, especially indoor ones in quiet neighborhoods. Clean water, strict timings, cameras, everywhere it feels controlled and safe. That's exactly why I never thought something like this could happen to me. Even now, when I try to explain it, it sounds unreal, but every part of it happened exactly the way I remember. This happened last summer when I was staying with my cousin in a small town in California. Her apartment complex had an indoor pool that residents could use until 11 p.m. It wasn't very crowded, especially on weekdays, and I usually went late at night because I liked being alone. It felt peaceful, like I had the entire place to myself. Nothing ever felt strange about it in the beginning. One night, I went a little later than usual. I remember checking my phone. It was around 10:40 p.m. when I entered the pool area. The place was completely empty. The lights were dim, probably because closing time was near, and the only sound was a low mechanical hum from somewhere in the building. I placed my towel on a chair and stepped into the water. It felt slightly colder than usual, but I didn't think much of it. I started swimming normally, doing a few laps, then slowing down and floating on my back. After a while, I noticed something small but unsettling. The water felt deeper than it should have been. I had been in that pool many times, and I knew exactly where the depth changed. But that night, it felt like the deep end started much earlier. I tried to ignore it and continued swimming, telling myself it was just in my head. A few minutes later, I heard a faint splash behind me. It wasn't loud, just enough to make me turn around. I expected to see someone entering the pool, but there was no one there. The door was closed, the chairs were empty, and the water had already gone still again. I even called out once, just in case, but there was no reply. The silence that followed felt heavier than before, and for the first time, I became aware that I was completely alone. I decided I would leave after one more lap. As I reached the edge of the pool and placed my hands on the tiles to climb out, I felt something brush lightly against my foot. It was quick, almost like an accidental touch. I immediately pulled my leg up and looked down into the water, expecting to see something, maybe a loose object or just a ripple, but there was nothing. The water was clear, and I could see the bottom. I stayed there for a few seconds, trying to calm myself down, then slowly lowered my foot back into the water. Nothing happened. I told myself I was overthinking and tried to climb out again. That's when it happened a second time, but this time it wasn't light. Something wrapped around my ankle. The grip wasn't painful, but it was firm enough that I couldn't ignore it. My body froze completely. I looked down again, expecting to see a hand or anything that could explain it, but there was still nothing there. The water looked completely normal. The grip lasted only a couple of seconds before it suddenly let go. I didn't wait to understand it. I pulled myself out of the pool as fast as I could, slipping slightly on the wet tiles. My entire body felt cold in a way that had nothing to do with the water. I grabbed my towel and moved toward the exit, trying not to look back. Just as I reached the door, I heard movement in the pool again. It wasn't a splash this time. It sounded slower, like something shifting under the water. Against my better judgment, I turned around. The surface of the pool wasn't still anymore. It wasn't chaotic either, just slightly disturbed, as if something large had moved beneath it. The movement started from the deep end and slowly spread outward. For a brief second, I saw something under the water. It wasn't clear enough to describe properly, but it was too big to be anything normal. It moved slowly, staying just far enough below the surface that I couldn't fully make it out. That was enough for me. I left immediately without stopping. I didn't tell my cousin that night. I convinced myself it was stress or imagination. The next morning, I went back to the pool area, not to swim, but to check if everything looked normal. The pool was closed, and there was a notice on the door saying it was under maintenance. When I asked the building manager about it, he said they had to drain the pool because of a filtration issue. I asked him if anyone else had reported something unusual. He paused for a moment before answering. Then he said a few people had mentioned feeling something touch their feet recently, but it was probably just water, pressure, or currents. He smiled when he said it, but it didn't feel convincing. I never went back to that pool again. What bothers me isn't just what I felt that night, but what I realized later. When I was in the water, whatever touched me didn't try to pull me down. It didn't act like something aggressive. It just held my ankle for a moment, like it was checking something. The part I still can't explain is the time. I clearly remember entering the pool at 10:40 p.m. I remember swimming, hearing the splash, and trying to leave almost immediately after things started feeling wrong. But when I checked my phone outside, the time was 11:18 p.m. There's no way I stayed in the water that long without realizing it, which means there's a gap of nearly 20 minutes that I can't remember at all. And whatever was in that pool with me during that time, I have no idea what it was doing.